Have you ever heard a drum at midnight, beating when no one is there to strike it? In our village, such a sound was more than fear, it was a warning. Now listen well, for tonight's story is not for the faint of heart. This is the tale of the drum that woke the dead at midnight. They say the night carries secrets that the day cannot bear, and I have lived long enough to know this is true. But there was one night, one unforgettable night, when even the earth itself trembled under the weight of a secret too heavy to remain buried. That night, the drum was struck at midnight, and the dead awoke. I was there. I heard it. And though my hair is now white like cotton in the harmattan wind, the memory burns in me like fire that refuses to die. Long ago, when I was still a young man in my village, before my voice grew hoarse with age, our people lived in peace beneath the shadow of the great Iroko tree. Life was simple then, mornings filled with the songs of birds, afternoons with the laughter of children, and evenings with the crackle of fires where tales like this one were told. But hidden beneath that peace was a curse as old as the stones on the riverbed. A curse tied to a drum. This drum was no ordinary drum. Our ancestors spoke of it in hushed tones, calling it a korooku, the drum of the departed. Carved from the heart of a tree struck by lightning, its height stretched with the skin of a panther, and its rim bound with bronze, it was said to contain the voice of the ancestors. It had not been beaten in living memory. In fact, it was forbidden, sealed away in the sacred shrine of the forest, guarded by silence and fear. Our elders always warned us, Otutumodu anegi egbo agwo ohu no akoro akokoya. Many do not kill the snake but all tell its story. The drum was the serpent we dared not touch. We knew its tale, but none dared awaken it. But the young are restless, and curiosity is a stubborn fire. There came a season of drought so fierce that the yam barns lay empty and the streams turned to dust. The people cried to the gods, but the sky gave no rain. The elders muttered that perhaps an offering had been forgotten, or a taboo broken. Fear thickened the air like smoke. It was then that whispers began. Some said the drought was the work of witches. Others said the ancestors had turned their backs on us. But one name returned again and again, the drum of the departed. They said that if the drum were struck at midnight, the ancestors themselves would rise to answer the call of the living. They said the dead would walk, bringing counsel, blessings, or judgment. At first, I dismissed these whispers as the ramblings of the fearful. But fear, like a flood, has a way of seeping into every crack. Soon, even the bravest among us began to wonder, could it be true? Could the drum break the drought? Then came the night that changed everything. The moon was swollen and red, like an eye filled with blood. The air was heavy, as if the world was holding its breath. I lay awake, my heart restless, when I heard footsteps outside my hut. Peering through the crack in the wall, I saw a group of young men moving like shadows toward the forest. Among them was Okeke, my closest friend. His face was lit with the fire of reckless determination. I should have stayed in my bed. I should have closed my eyes and buried my fear beneath my mat. But something stronger than caution pulled me to my feet. I followed them, silent as the night, into the forest. The path to the shrine was one I had never dared tread. The tree stood tall and solemn, their branches clawing at the sky. The air grew colder, and the usual chorus of crickets and owls was gone. It was as if the forest itself was warning us, turn back. But the young men did not turn back. At the center of the grove, beneath the towering Iroko, stood the shrine. And there, upon a carved pedestal, rested the drum of the departed. Even in the pale moonlight, it seemed alive, its surface pulsing faintly, as though it breathed. Okeke stepped forward, his chest rising and falling with defiance. He looked at the others, then at the drum, and I knew in that moment that nothing could stop him. With hands trembling but resolute, he lifted the sacred sticks. The first strike echoed like thunder, though he struck softly. My blood ran cold. The sound rolled through the trees, deep and heavy, as if the earth itself had groaned. The second strike came, louder, sharper, piercing the silence. By the third strike, I felt it. A vibration, not just in the ground, but in my bones, in my very soul. The air thickened. The night grew darker. And then, the forest answered. From the shadows came a sound, not animal, not human, but something between. A whispering, a rustling, like the shuffle of countless feet on dry leaves. The hairs on my neck rose. And then I saw them. Figures emerging from the trees, pale and wavering, like smoke-giving flesh. The eyes glowed faintly, hollow yet knowing. The dead had answered. Our ancestors had awoken. The dead had answered. At first, my knees weakened, and I almost fled, but my feet would not obey. The forest was filled with a glow that had no source, a faint silver light that clung to the figures now surrounding us. There were many, old warriors with scarred chests, women with baskets upon their heads, children clutching wooden toys, all of them with faces that shimmered between flesh and bone. My grandmother used to say, Onwo adigi akpo modu nihu, ono akpo ya enazu. Death does not call a man from the front, it calls him from behind. And as those spirits walked among us, I understood her words. For they did not move as strangers, they moved as kin, calling us with eyes that saw too deep. Okeke, still gripping the sticks, stood frozen. His chest rose and fell as if he wrestled with air too heavy to breathe. Then one of the spirits stepped forward, taller than the rest, draped in a cloak of leaves, with a staff made of bone and fireflies dancing around his head. His eyes were bottomless pools, and his voice shook the night. Children of the dust, he said, though his mouth never moved, why have you struck the drum of the departed? His words were not sound but weight. They pressed against my skull, thunder inside my chest. The young men shrank back, trembling, but none could speak. Then Okeke swallowed and answered, his voice breaking. Our land is dying. The yam barns are empty. The streams are dry. The people starve. We call to the gods, but they do not hear. We call to you, our fathers and mothers, to help us. The spirit's gaze burned. Help. His voice cracked like dry wood. You call us not with reverence but with defiance. You strike the drum without sacrifice, without the blessing of the elders, without purity of heart. Do you think the dead are your slaves? The air thickened, the spirits behind him murmured, their voices like rustling leaves. I wanted to fall to the ground, to cover my ears, but my body betrayed me, I was rooted in place. The leader lifted his staff, and the fireflies whirled into a storm of light. The bond between the living and the dead is sacred. When broken, it breeds chaos. And then, with a sound that chilled my blood, the spirits began to wail. A long, sorrowful cry that shook the trees and sent birds scattering into the night sky. It was the cry of hunger, of thirst, of forgotten graves. The earth trembled beneath us. The ground split, revealing bones that glowed like embers. From the cracks, hands reached out, skeletal, desperate, grasping at the air, at our ankles, at life itself. The young men screamed. Some ran into the trees, but the forest seemed endless, every path folding back upon itself. Others fell, clawing at the hands that dragged them toward the soil. I stood in horror, unable to move, watching as Okeke dropped the sticks and clutched his head, wailing louder than any of them. Then the spirit chief turned his gaze upon me. I felt his eyes pierce into my marrow, into the memories of my childhood, into the guilt I did not even know I carried. You, he said. My breath caught. You who followed though not called. You who watched though not guilty. Will you carry the weight of this night? I could not answer. My tongue was torn. My heart pounded so loud I thought it would burst. But he did not wait for my words. He thrust the staff into the ground, and the earth closed again, swallowing the hands and bones. The wailing ceased. The spirit stilled. The air was heavy, but silence returned. The leader bent close to me, his face so near that I smelled the scent of old earth and burning leaves. His voice was low, a whisper that tore through my soul. Tell them. Tell the living that the ancestors do not dance to the drum of impatience. Tell them that hunger does not excuse arrogance. Tell them the drought is not of the sky, but of their hearts. And with that, the spirits began to fade, dissolving into mist, their eyes lingering like dying stars. One by one they vanished, until only the drum remained, and it, too, cracked down the middle with a sound like thunder, splitting into silence. I found myself alone in the forest. The others, I do not know if they ever returned. Some say they were taken that night. Some say they wander still. But I carried the message, and I have carried it all my life. When I returned to the village, dawn was already breaking. The sky glowed with a pale sadness, the kind that makes the heart heavy before the day even begins. My feet bled from running, though I did not remember running. My lips were cracked, my hands trembled, and my eyes had seen too much. The people gathered around me, their voices sharp with questions. Where is Okeke? Where are the others? What happened in the forest? I could not speak at first. My throat was ash, my tongue bound by fear. The images of grasping hands, of faces fading into mist, pressed against my mind like thorns. But the spirit leader's words burned louder still. Tell them. So I told them. I told them of the midnight drum, of the dead who answered, of the staff that split the earth. I told them the message, that hunger was not an excuse for arrogance, that our hearts had grown dry, that the ancestors would not be summoned like slaves. As I spoke, silence fell. Not even a baby cried. The old men leaned on their staffs, their eyes wide with the weight of things they had long forgotten. The women covered their mouths, their breaths shallow. Children clutched their mothers' wrappers, afraid to blink. When I finished, the chief of the village rose slowly. His beard was white, his back bent with age, yet his voice carried the sharpness of a blade. You have spoken what no one should speak, he said. And yet, you live. I swallowed, my body shivering. The ancestors spared you for a reason, he continued. But their mercy is also their burden. You will not live as others live. You will carry this memory until your bones join theirs. You will never eat yam without remembering famine, never hear a drum without remembering midnight, never sleep without hearing the wail of the dead. His words struck harder than any whip. The crowd murmured, shifting uneasily. Some looked at me with pity, others with fear, as though death itself clung to my shadow. That night, the drought deepened. The rains did not come. The earth cracked wider, and hunger spread like a sickness. People whispered that the young men had brought a curse by striking the drum of the dead. Others said I had carried something back with me, that the spirits followed in my breath, that my presence drew misfortune like flies to rot. I became both a warning and a curse. Mothers pointed at me when children disobeyed, do not be stubborn like Okeke, or you will vanish like him. Do not wander like that boy, or the spirits will follow you home. But at night, when the moon was pale and the wind sighed through the trees, I would hear it, faint, distant, but clear. The drum. Beating once, then silence. Beating again, then silence. Not loud enough for anyone else to hear, but always enough to remind me. And sometimes, when I looked into the fire, faces appeared in the flames, faces of the young men who never returned. They did not speak, but their eyes begged, why you? Why only you? I have grown old now. My hair is the color of ash, my back bent like the chief's once was. But still, when I close my eyes, I see the spirit chief's gaze. I hear his voice, tell them. Tell the living that the ancestors do not dance to the drum of impatience. So I tell it. Again and again. I tell it to the children who laugh at shadows. I tell it to the hunters who grow proud of their strength. I tell it to the women who think hunger excuses defiance. And I tell it to you, listening now, so that when you hear a drum beat at midnight, you will not be foolish enough to follow. For I am the last witness of that night. The last one who heard the dead wail. The last one who knows the price of striking a forbidden drum. And when my bones return to the earth, when my voice finally falls silent, the story will remain. Because the drum still beats. Always. Waiting for the next foe.